Well, I'm here in my garage, and this is my car up on stands. I'm working on it again. I wasn't planning on recording this, but I had someone ask, my dad actually, what I was doing, so I'm just going to do a quick walk around on what I'm doing with this vehicle. Um, the problem with it is that the steering was making a little bit of noise around corners, and there was a bit of an imprecise feel to it. So after a quick inspection last week, it looked like the problem was an inner tie rod. So I'm just coming around to the side of the car that I thought the problem was initially. I'm going to get underneath here. So I thought it was the inner tie rod, and I went to the auto parts store and got got the inner tie rod, the special removal tool to get it off, because it doesn't look like there's any access in here from underneath. So over here, there's the CV joint, the outer CV joint, and sway bar bushings here, sway bar that runs to the other side of the vehicle. Here's our tie rod, the outer tie rod, the jam nut right here to adjust the toe on the wheel, and that rod comes up here and goes up to, see if I can get the light on here, to that boot right there. And the rack for the rack and pinion is up on top, and here's the boot on it. So there was a stainless steel ring around the boot on the rack that I cut off, so I couldn't, it was kind of a permanent connection, I couldn't loosen that particular clamp. So I cut that off, got everything loose, took the outer tie rod ball joint over here out, was able to hammer that out, and realized that that was not the problem. The inner tie rod actually is in good shape yet. So I went and tried to find the actual issue, which I'll show you in a minute, but this boot on the tie rod, I did replace that. So it's an aftermarket boot. Doesn't look like it fits perfectly. I kind of think that it's just going to let the water and grit in, but the old one was torn, so this is at least as good as it was. I'm going to go over to the other side now to show you, well actually, let's stay on this side for a moment. So the actual problem ended up being the lower ball joint. So we have the lower control arm here for the vehicle. This is a McPherson strut, so this is the lower control arm. It pivots on the subframe here, supports the bottom of the knuckle. Here's your tie rod that turns it left and right, and up on top is the third support. So 3 points make a plane. That keeps this wheel in nice alignment. But this is the lower ball joint. I had replaced this one already a little while ago, and that was a lot of work. But the actual issue, if I get this grease off my finger so don't smear it on the camera. Alright, so the actual issue was this ball joint on the other side of the vehicle. So I went back to the auto parts store, returned my inner tie rod. I bought a 2-pack of boots, so I went ahead and put the boot on the other side also, since that one was also torn. These ball joints are actually in good condition yet. They still have some preload left, so no need to change those. But fortunately, since this is an older GM product, parts are cheap. I got 2 boots, lower ball joint, and a sway bar bushing, because the old one is rusty and broke apart when I removed it. All 3 of those parts for $30. So not a bad deal at all. Now I'm going to move to the other side of the vehicle. This is one time when having a lift to work on your vehicle would be very, very nice. But, alright, so here we are under the other side. Other side of the vehicle looks the same basically. I have the wheel turned almost all the way so that I can get at it. Tie rod's back behind, looking at it from the front of the vehicle now, front toward the back. But this ball joint is really loose. I'm glad I caught this now. Otherwise, who knows what would have happened. If that breaks, that is not good. But unfortunately, on these vehicles, they chose to rivet in. You can see the rivets on top. There's 3 of them. They chose to rivet on this ball joint onto the lower control arm. And if you go underneath, there are the 3 rivets. All 3 of them. I started drilling them out already. I went through 3 drill bits, and they all went dull. So I went and borrowed a drill bit sharpener from my dad, and now I can get started on those again. But so basically, I took this nut that's up on top, took the cotter pin out, which was a real pain because it was very rusty. Took the cotter pin out, put a wrench on it with a hammer, and hammered on that until that nut came loose. Just an open-ended or a closed-end wrench. And that nut did break loose, fortunately. Then I pounded on the knuckle and pried with a big pry bar right here to pull this whole assembly up, and eventually it broke loose. So I didn't have too much trouble getting that out. The other side was a real pain when I did that, but so I just have to drill these out, and then I can put in the new part. At least it sounds that simple, but this control arm has these rubber bushings up here where it pivots on the subframe, and it takes quite a bit of force actually to push this control arm down so that I can get this ball joint stud out of the knuckle. The proper way to do this would be to loosen these pivot points, but I am not going to mess with those because they're rusted up, and I can really not get back to those once the vehicle has its weight on it again. Because you want to put the weight on the vehicle before you tighten these up, otherwise you'll rip up the bushings. But I really can't get to those very easily on this car, so what I'm going to do instead is use this sway bar linkage back here, which I don't know if you can see. Sway bar, I took out that sway bar link, but I'm just going to put a piece of threaded rod with some nuts on it between the sway bar and the control arm, and then I can just force this arm to whatever position I want with that threaded rod, and I can just force this down, put the new part in, let it back up, and I'll be good. So that's basically what I've been working on here, and I think I have all the parts. Everything came loose. This here up on top is a shim that I put in the brake on the brake caliper. It's an aftermarket caliper and it doesn't fit quite right, so that shim keeps this from rattling around, makes it a lot quieter. But anyway, I didn't intend to make this very long. I just wanted to show a little bit what I was doing, and for anybody who's interested, here's the other tie rod with the new boot that I put on there, and all 4 of these ball joints up here are going to have grease fittings that I'm going to need to grease before I put this back on the road. But otherwise, that should be about it. I'm back in my garage again. It's a pretty small 2-car garage, well lit though, and really doesn't have a lot of room for working on things, which is kind of a pain. I have my workbench here, which is full of crap. It's really the only space I have to set stuff, and I'm in the middle of something, so it's a mess. But I'm back out here again to show the replacement parts that I picked up, and I don't know if this will show up very well on camera, but so here's the replacement ball joint. It just has this cast iron ball joint here, which it's a cheap brand, but it's an old car, so I don't want to spend a whole lot on it. Looks like it comes with all the bolts, the nuts, and a grease fitting the cotter pin. And here's the sway bar link, which I'm replacing because the old one was very rusty, and I couldn't get it loose without breaking it off. So this one I bought a little better quality kit than the other one. Oddly enough, this cost almost as much as the ball joint, but I don't really like the cheap rubber pieces that the cheaper one came with, so I spent the extra and got a better quality rubber part. But anyway, those are the two parts that I'm going to be putting on the vehicle, and just wanted to quick show that. Guess this might be of interest. This is the tire that was on that side of the vehicle with the bad ball joint, and a lot of times if you have bad suspension parts, you'll get uneven or rapid tire wear, but this one seems to be in pretty good shape. Nothing unusual about it, so I guess I probably caught it in time.